September the 14th, 2022. Guys, there are two things that I've been watching, and you can tell from the videos in the last month, and even going back further than that, watching the railroad strike. One is the economic collapse that's very well could be happening now. I'll tell you a couple things about that. And the other is the supply chain issues. One is this railroad strike, and actually today effects are already starting to come in, and it really doesn't start until tomorrow night, 1 minute after midnight. But we'll look at that. But they're saying AMTRACK on Wednesday, that's today, announced it canceled all long-distance trains starting tomorrow, September 15th, as the national rail strike looms. Now, they've been talking about this strike and how it would be devastating to the U.S. supply chain and an already fragile Biden economy. And that's true, guys. But when you think about shutting down, these are passenger trains, and the Northeast relies heavily upon this travel. And the shutdowns are concerning big cities, Chicago, D.C., all along the East Coast. We'll look at the list there. But it's going to affect a lot of people. And someone made a comment in the video the other night about, we were talking about the trains. Someone said there may not be many running unless they're headed to one of those FEM, you know what, camps. And, you know, you have to keep that in the back of your mind. Now, there's a lot of people involved in this, in the union, and it's different unions involved in the entire thing. And there's different districts. I think District 19, which sounds like a sci-fi movie, I think, but is one of the ones that they are going to have some problems with. They said on Wednesday, almost 5,000 members of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, District 19, voted to reject the proposed agreement. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of people, but you've got two other sections that are still voting against it, and you're over 100,000 people in those two groups. But IAM Freight, which is the Machinist and Aerospace Group, the members are skilled professionals who have worked in difficult conditions through the pandemic to make sure essential products get to their destinations. The union said it. He said, "We look forward to continuing that vital work with a fair contract that ensures our members and their families are treated with the respect they deserve for keeping America's goods and resources moving through the pandemic." And I think, I'm not positive, I'm not an expert in the railroad industry about it, but guys, they are going to try to free up the resources that they have for necessary supplies. Now, here's some of the things they're not going to be shipping. Can you imagine it? Petroleum products, crude products, ammonia and fertilizer. We talked about this fertilizer situation back in the spring, that they probably wouldn't be doing it by the fall. And what they've already done starting today was any trains and things like that would have some of these really valuable cargo aboard. They are already trying to get them off the tracks, get them unloaded or put into rail yards and things like that, so that if there's a major breakdown, these, again, crude products, ammonia and all of that won't be exposed or left out in the middle of nowhere. It says such an interruption could significantly impact intercity passenger rail service, as AMTRACK operates almost all of our 21,000 route miles outside the Northeast Corridor on track, owned, maintained, and dispatched by freight railroads. In other words, like I said, free up the resources that they're going to have if a lot of the members are on strike in different groups to maintain the freight, not the passengers. But when you start dealing with the higher prices of gas, and they have come down somewhat, and you're looking at the stock market, things like that, they're wanting to do away with gasoline-powered cars. They want to go to electric, although if it's really hot or really cold, you can't charge those because you'll break the grid. And so now you're seeing European countries buck against that and want to go back and crank up their coal-fired plants and their nuclear plants and things like that. One of the problems, though, that they have is some of the major rivers are very low, and they use that for cooling, for the cooling towers in these power plants, and there's not enough of it to where if they dump that back in, it would kill everything in the water at that temperature. Now, after that article that we just went through, there was one that was updated at 2:15 p.m. today. It says, update, rail union rejects deal to prevent strike planned for this Friday, September the 16th. Now, they're saying the estimates of the strike could cost the U.S. economy $2 billion a day and disrupt deliveries of all kinds of goods and passenger traffic nationwide. And it's just kind of falls in line with shutting down gasoline-powered vehicles because you don't have a whole lot of alternatives. But it's going to end up people going back to travel shorter distances, things like that. More of a community travel, if you understand what I'm saying, golf carts or whatever you can charge up, by the way, with solar panels. Now, also in this update this afternoon, it says one of the 10 labor groups that had reached a tentative deal with the U.S. rail companies to prevent a system-wide strike has now rejected the offer. I mentioned this probably in 5 or 6 videos about the book and movie Atlas Shrugs. And it's all about this. And it's interesting because in Atlas Shrugs, guys, the main thing was the federal government was taking over everything. In other words, the owners of the railroad companies, the steel companies that built bridges and railroad tracks, things like that, they were being taken over by the government and the senators and everything because of greed. And so all of these leaders just packed it up, went to a hidden community in the mountains with high technology, and let it all fall apart. And how many CEOs have we seen in the last year or 2 years that have resigned? A lot of them stay on vacation. A lot of them you don't hear from very much. Now again, one of the groups that voted against it was the International Association of Machinist Aerospace Workers. And that was 4,900 members voted to reject the deal. Its leaders reached with the U.S. freight railroads in an effort to keep the system running. Now, they're trying to extend the negotiations until September 29th, which would be basically 2 weeks past the 15th. Now, there's 2 other unions that are also on strike or going on strike. But here's what's so important about these. 60,000 of those members are engineers and conductors. Think about that. They're set to go on strike Friday as the Biden administration scrambles to reach a deal in a desperate attempt to prevent economic turmoil leading up to the midterm elections. Guys, today is Wednesday. By Friday, or at the latest, you need to be stocking up on everything you can think of, from food, whatever it is. You need to make sure that you have enough to get you through several months, possibly into early spring. The reason I say that is because even if the strike is over in a couple weeks, a week, 2 weeks, then everything's got to get back online. But in those 2 or 3 weeks, there can be a lot of problems because trains deliver to major distributors, then 18-wheelers take it from there. And they say trains do about 29 point something or 30% of our transportation for essential goods. But again, without that 30%, the trucking industry would not be able to do it. They would not have the stuff, the big warehouses that they come in, say for Walmart or something in Arkansas, and then go out to all the branch Walmarts. The trucks do that. To get to that warehouse are these guys here. It says the conductors and engineer unions remained in negotiations with the nation's railroad management companies as they demand more quality of life provisions be put into the contracts for the coming year, covering attendance policies, vacation, and sick days. And they're saying that working conditions and scheduling issues are driving their members to quit in droves, leaving the railroads with staffing shortages that those who are left have to fill. So what do you got? All this overtime you're forced into, less time off, just and wears you down. Is it by design? There's a lot of things that's happening right now that take down this economy. And just for a moment, I want to put into this. I'm not going to go into it in detail, but China issued the highest typhoon warning as storm approaches world's largest container ports. Guys, do you remember the video series I did about the comet that struck in the 1400s in the oceans down south of Australia and wiped out a good bit of the Chinese fleet as they were prepared to take over the Earth? Do you remember those videos? Well, it looks like the Dragon is in trouble again. Not only this, but major lockdowns are going on there. And this I want to bring up also, guys, because this is the other thing we're watching. You're looking at the Dow today, and they were talking about the market winners, which was pretty ironic. It was plus 30, but guys, yesterday it lost 1,200 points. So over 1,200. So you can see that what's happening now. Remember, I think it was 3 Fridays ago that they lost 1,000. In the last 30 days, the Dow's dropped 3,000. So, but in 2 days, out of that 3,000, they lost 2,200 points in 2 trading days. And what you're looking at here is a 5-day margin. It's showing yesterday the drop from here down to the 14th at over 1,200 points. The video we did, and we did it on Paul's show on a Sunday night a few Sundays ago, and we talked about the conditions leading up to the economic collapse. And going from September 25th to the first weekend of October was when a lot of this was going to happen between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur in the High Holy Days. There were other factors involved with it. And one of the things we talked about was there would be a drop, would be a slow rise that would not reach the peak of where it started in the drop. And then it would slow rise. A lot of people would try to buy back in, and then it would drop out of sight. And that is kind of exactly what we're seeing again. Out of 30 days, 3,000 points lost. In 2 days, 2,200 of those points. And guys, while we're looking at the CNBC stock market report, here's what they're saying today. It's titled, I'm not going to play their video. You can go to CNBC if you want to watch it. It says countdown to massive rail strike. What they're showing here on the right are CXX, Union Pacific, Norfolk Southern, and Canadian Pacific. And the stocks are down 3.9%, 3.3%, 2.9%, 2.78%. What did I say about Atlas Shrugged? But we're seeing it, and that's how they tore the country down, guys. And then you had people disappearing. There are 2 or 3, I think there's 3 maybe Atlas Shrugged movies out that are probably on some of the free channels, 1, 2, and 3, that kind of tells a story and tells you what was behind it then. I think, guys, what was that in the 40s? And what's behind it now? You'll see similarities in movies and books a lot of times will point to something that's coming. Well, sometimes it was because it had happened in history before. But we're at a time that, guys, you need to be very aware. You remember when the disease started, and one of the things they were really reporting on was the run on toilet paper. A lot of people talking about, well, they bought plenty of toilet paper, but they didn't buy much food. Well, maybe you're going to need them both. And you don't have but a couple of days before some major problems happen. Again, the trains going to the Walmart, Kroger warehouses, whatever it is, the big stores in your area. And it's a 3-day resupply time. It takes 3 days for store to go through what it's stocked with. And what's going to happen is, now you're seeing mainstream talk about this, more and more people are going to be getting ready just like they would for a hurricane coming into one of the coastal states. You know, there's a run on plywood, generators, gas, water, food. The shelves are empty. You could possibly see this, and a lot of people, it's not like a hurricane, say, coming into Florida. Everybody knows about it because it's all over the news. A lot of people are not looking for certain information. They could care less. So take advantage of that. You spend a lot of your life, just like I have, trying to nudge people into getting prepared. So you do it for yourself. Not only that, when you do it for yourself, if you have kids and grandkids, more than likely you're going to be doing that for them too, because a lot of those kids are into their own thing just like we were when we were kids. So be prepared for them also. But things could get very rough very quickly. And I said in the last video about this, please, if it's nothing but beans and rice, go to the store, buy all the rice you can get, buy all the beans, and it will keep you alive to get through the situation. Whatever else you can get, you want it to, you want to get as much as you can, guys. I know it's going to be kind of tight. A lot of us, it's been that way for the last 2 years, and some of us have been preparing for longer than that. But if you haven't, it's time to do it. We're watching it, guys. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.